Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm turning my attention to Scots law, which is a subject I'm fascinated by. It's a very interesting subject in its own right, and we can learn, of course, in England and Wales from the Scottish model on many aspects of how we conduct our jurisprudence. This particular book has come to us from Edinburgh University Press, and it's one of a series of books. We're going to look at the book in a minute. Let me give you the title first of all. It's this book over here, red cover. Enlightenment, Legal Education and Critique. Selected Essays on the History of Scots Law. It's volume 2 and it's been written by John W. Cairns, and there of course is a volume 1 which we've reviewed separately. It's part of the Edinburgh Studies in Law series, and it's volume 14, and the series editor is Elspeth Christie Reid. The book's available as a PDF as well as a hardback, and it's also available now as an e-publication. Now, what we have done, Elizabeth and I talked about this. My wife is Scottish, so she's got some fairly detailed understanding to a certain extent of how the jurisdiction operates and the history, of course, of Scots law itself, because this is about selected essays on the history of Scots law. And so we've given it a title for our review, Scots Law and the 18th Century Scottish Enlightenment, an insightful examination, and that's exactly what it is. Let's look at the book first. It's a hardback, you can see there. There's the front, the spine, then the back. There's a certain amount of information on the back. And then when we go into the book itself, it runs to something like under 500 pages. You can see there's a detailed index right at the back. And then what you've got is a whole series of detailed chapters, of course. There is quite a lot of footnoting, which you can see. I'm just taking this as random. You can see the footnoting. If we go to the front of the book, you can then see there is nothing, by the way, on the dust cover. There's nothing on the insides at all. So all the information is actually in the book itself. This is the Edinburgh Studies in Law series, which are listed on the side there, which gives you an idea of what we're looking at. There is, of course, a website which is well worth visiting. Then you've got the front page there. Then you've got details, and it's actually a little dedication, which I like to mention, which is there. Then you've got the actual contents. The preface is well worth reading. We'll go through the contents first. You can see there are 15 effectively individual chapters. Then the author's written a preface, which is actually there, dated 2013. So it's a little old. And then we've got acknowledgements, which we have there. Then there's an introduction, which is nice. It actually tries to set the scene, I think, very well indeed from the introduction. Then we go into the main enlightened legal education it starts off with, and then we start from there with lawyers, law professors and localities, universities of Aberdeen. So it's a very detailed and I think a very nice tribute to the way in which Scots law has developed. And I say that as an English lawyer, but someone who's always, as I've indicated, been primarily quite interested in seeing the development of other jurisdictions. So we've got something to compare, because the common law itself is one of the greatest systems the world has seen. And at the same time, we do look to see how the other models are working. This is what we say anyway about Professor Cairns' book. Having recently reviewed volume 1 of this 2-volume work, and you can see that on a different website, a similar introductory comment could be made, to wit, that English lawyers should certainly read this, as Scots lawyers no doubt already have. Readers may note first of all that the links and similarities between the common law and Scots law are as interesting as the differences, and there are differences aplenty, as revealed in these two fascinating volumes. And whilst I'm doing the reviews separately, they can be looked at as I say, as independent. They're standalone volumes, but it's nice to link the two together. It's been published recently, this work, by Edinburgh University Press as part of their Edinburgh Studies in Law series. and both volumes present a collection of essays and articles by Professor John W. Cairns, who holds the chair of civil law at the University of Edinburgh. It's written in the course of his illustrious and varied career in legal history, and many of these articles have been published outside the UK and reputedly oft quoted. So you can see it's effectively a series of contributions of articles, and we're very grateful, of course, to have them. Tying these numerous articles together then, the introduction to this volume explains that the selected essays, quote, all deal in some way or another with law and its institutions in 18th century Scotland, referring, of course, to the remarkable outpouring of intellectual endeavour known as the Scottish Enlightenment. But you needn't be a lawyer or law student to appreciate the significance of this period in Scottish, or actually European and world history. And there's another quote, says Cairns, the influence of the Enlightenment on Scotland and the impact of the Scottish natural and social or moral sciences on the European and transatlantic Enlightenment are both incontestable. And that's, I think, a very valid statement. Take, for instance, just one of the many examples cited in this book, namely that of Adam Smith. He was elected Professor of Logic at the University of Glasgow in January 1751, and his lectures on jurisprudence, in the opinion of Cairns, showed how law could be taught as a dynamic historical process. His moral philosophy course included the study of justice and political regulation, founded on expediency, which was subsequently published as Yes, the Wealth of Nations. Let me conclude the review by saying this. Further information, if you're interested, and by now we should hope you are, is to be had in the book's first section on enlightened legal education, and that's the bit that I showed you at the beginning, followed by the next two sections on the development of the Glasgow Law School and a subsequent section on crime courts and slavery. Remember the dates. The final section offers intriguing references to literature and legal history with the focus on Sir Walter Scott. So, as you might rightly infer, this book fairly bristles with informed and insightful commentary based on the copious and careful research indicated by the extensive footnoting throughout. For everyone from comparative lawyers to legal historians and readers in general, we think this book, together with its companion volume, is quite a find and certainly an important acquisition for the Legal Scholars Professional Library. So thank you very much to Professor Cairns and to Edinburgh University Press. There's the book again, spine, and then the back of it. Let's just open it in the middle. We've got some quite interesting information there, right in the middle of the book, chapter 8 on John Miller and many others. Then if we go further ahead, you can see these are, again, that's a longish chapter, that one. We then go on to a whole range of other very interesting points. There's one that I do want to point out particularly because I mentioned it earlier on. As I'm recording this, we have the Slavery Bill and its aftermath going through Parliament. Stoicism, slavery and law. You can see this is a chapter 13. I thought, again, very important area, looking at the way in which our society has developed. Even in 2015, we have a very substantial issue of slavery. It's in a different form, but it's still there. So you can see that what the history of what has happened, as that is unfolding and taken place, we can learn some lessons. I'd like to thank everybody concerned for this. It's an excellent book, an excellent series of works, and a fascinating read. Thank you. Bye-bye.